Smith County, now the newest county in Southwest Virginia to become a Second Amendment sanctuary.
Tonight, Bedford County became the latest place in our area to declare itself a Second Amendment sanctuary.
The list of Second Amendment sanctuaries is growing tonight.
Otero joined Fremont, Custer, Montezuma counties in their stance against the red flag gun bill.
Washington State Police Chief wants to make his community a sanctuary city.
And Tennessee counties are taking notice, with 5 in the eastern part of the state passing resolutions to become Second Amendment sanctuary counties.
And the Hood County Sheriff wants to make sure the people who own firearms are protected. He tells Alex Rozier he wants to create a sanctuary county for guns.
So, during the 2008 election, Michelle Obama called a ton of crap for saying how certain segments of the United States populace clings to their guns and religion. Now, you may be asking yourself, Jay, I thought you were more enlightened on the 2A situation. I really am. I just feel it prudent to point that out. Like, she wasn't wrong. She caught a lot of shit for that, but she wasn't wrong. But the deal is that they cling to their guns and religion for good reason, as Venezuela has taught us. But here in my great state of New Jersey, we now have 2 counties who have declared themselves 2A sanctuaries. Once again, we've had, the Venezuelan thing really opened my eyes, and disarmament, basically when the government decides it wants to come through and take, someone's constitutionally protected firearms, then I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that's a slippery slope to tyranny. And I've actually wanted to talk about this for a while. Razor Fist did a pretty good video on it, but Mr. Metokur did a video. And if you are unfamiliar with Mr. Metokur, I haven't aped this stuff because he's been on Bitchute for the last for the last few months because YouTube was just messing with him. And so we're over on Bitchute now, and we're gonna talk this one out with using Mr. Metokur's video. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the man that they call Jim.
Well, what exactly is happening out there that all these sheriff's departments from different localities and communities from all across the country are implementing this concept of a Second Amendment sanctuary? And this isn't some singular locale. This is happening in numerous states and has been now for the past year. Well, it could be a sign of the times we live in. We've watched as our First Amendment rights, our right to free speech, have been eroded away with the implementation of a concept of hate speech as corporations work with the government to limit what you say and how you say it and who you say it to and when you say it. We've seen the insidious nature of political correctness shackle us and take away our ability to express ourselves in the way I don't think our founders would have ever thought would be possible. And it's a perfect example. What's happened with the First Amendment is the perfect example of why people are so wary of what is now taking place with the Second Amendment.
Okay, so once again, hella respect to this guy, Mr. Metokur. He puts out, he's basically an internet historian in many aspects, and really, his commentary is just hilarious. He's a good guy to check out. I can't recommend going to his Bitchute channel, which I will put a link to in the description of this channel. Now, the blue team, the left, Democrats, whatever the hell you want to call them, since the 2016 election, and even before that, but since the 2016 election, have lost their minds. Now, this goes back, particularly when it comes to the elites and the political class. This goes back to 9/11 and the Patriot Act, and when we started just happily ignoring them giving away our rights in a lot of angles and aspects. And particularly when it comes to urban America, yeah, these places have been institutionalized since the 60s and 70s to be accustomed to ultimately being police state type entities. So, it really does depend on the environment that you're in and the state that you're in. We've had, here in Jersey, the gun control has been off the Beelzebub since I want to say probably late 80s, early 90s. And the funny part, funny as in ironic, not funny as in haha, but the ironic part is that, we recently had the Jersey City situation, which should prove that these laws aren't being particularly helpful. But no. They're just like, well, we need to do it nationwide, and and the people who are in these areas, they're seeing this. They're seeing these gun grabs. They're seeing these, abortion laws go through. They're seeing they're seeing the illegal immigrant driver's licenses thing go through. And yeah, they're concerned. They are insanely concerned, and you really can't blame them at this point.
It is something that is gradual in its nature. A very slow-acting poison. And by the time the symptoms hit, by the time you're so weakened and bedridden, you're unable to do anything about it. You can't fight back. You've succumbed so far that you're not able to raise your voice up anymore. And what exactly is happening with the Second Amendment? Well, there's a massive introduction of different laws that are being put in place to restrict the sort of guns you can own, how you can procure those guns, where you can buy, sell, and trade those guns, the sorts of ammunitions that you can obtain, and how you can obtain them. And perhaps worst of all is the introduction of red flag laws. Red flag laws, which are something ripped right out of a science fiction movie for a future crime you might potentially commit. Maybe it's a loved one. Maybe it's a neighbor, a friend, a coworker. Maybe the guy at McDonald's making a burger for you just didn't like the way you looked at him. And so now here come law enforcement to take away your weapons because they need to assess if you might pose a risk. You haven't done anything yet. You haven't committed a crime yet. But they're going to take your guns anyway. And if you just so happen to get shot when they come to take your guns, well, that's your own damn fault.
Police say just after 5, 2 officers tried serving an extreme risk protective order on 60-year-old Gary Willis. Police say he answered the door holding a gun, placed it down, and stepped outside to speak to the officers.
Once they explained to him that he was the respondent of an order and that they would be taking his guns, he became irate, went back in the house, grabbed the gun. The first officer in the door grabbed the gun as well. They started tug-of-warring for the gun, and the suspect fired one shot from the gun. Luckily, that didn't hit anybody, but once that shot went off, the second officer fired his service weapon, striking the suspect.
So, hey, yeah, Jacqueline, Officer Jacqueline. Yeah, you're kind of cute. Secondly, this is the danger. Like I say, when you are of an urban community, right, you are really used to having that type of police, presence, to whereas you kind of just want to avoid them altogether. It's a big part of how I have been able to stay free all these years. Just like you dip around the police, but in other communities or other in other environments with other statutes and other laws, like these people are just used to having their weapons there readily available to them. Police aren't supposed to just come. If you haven't committed a crime, the police, by all means, are not supposed to just come and take your shit. Okay? That's just not how it works. Well, and that's not how it's supposed to work. But with these, with all these people in power, really determined to be as authoritarian as humanly possible, it's going to lend itself to disaster. It's part of the reason why I've done videos where they have people talking to the cops, asking them, hey, if your boss comes and tells you, like, if you get the orders to come in and kick in somebody's door, you're going to do it. It's like, well, I have my orders. And that's really where that line between law enforcement and stormtroopers basically come into play. Because I'm sure some will stand on principle, but most people won't stand on that paycheck. And it sucks that cop had that incident had to go down the way that it did.
Year-long escalation of what's going on with gun rights in America has really coalesced, and it's centered itself over Virginia, where headlines like this are now making the rounds. The law is the law. Virginia Democrats float prosecution and National Guard deployment if police don't enforce gun control. The Democratic officials, which are quoted in this article, are not only saying that they're going to have sheriffs fired for not following orders, that they're going to strip away the budgets of any county that refuses to oblige their gun grabbing, but they've gone so far as to say they have suggested to the Virginia governor, Ralph Northam, that he should bring in the National Guard and have them police over 75 counties. 75 counties out of the 90-plus counties in Virginia, which are refusing to go along with these new laws that are being proposed in the state right now. And this clear escalation in the rhetoric regarding the Second Amendment from all of these different bureaucrats and elected politicians who seem to believe they've been given God's divine will to protect people from themselves and strip them of their rights has really brought attention upon Virginia and got a lot of people talking about it. The National Guard itself gave a response on social media, a very nonplussed response, a very non-committal response. And it's easy to understand why they don't want to jump in head first when it comes to this issue. All you need to do is look at what others in law enforcement and government are saying about this. There is a tangible fear in the air.
I worked plainclothes.
So one of the main questions you kind of got to ask is, how do these people who are going completely against the wishes of their constituencies, and we're talking about the elected class here, you have to ask how, how did they end up so far removed from the will and the want of the people that they supposedly represent, right? Carpetbaggery in a lot of cases. Some a-hole that wasn't from that place came to that place, got elected in that place with a ton of money and a political machine behind them, and guess what? They're gonna do whatever the hell it is that they want to do. It's the residents and the constituents be damned. It's not much different than what's taking place here in New Jersey with Governor Murphy. Phil Murphy is not from New Jersey. Phil Murphy is from Massachusetts. He was an Obama appointee back when Obama was in the White House, and he came through. I'll never forget that summer. He came through with tons of cash. He'd already brought out all the county chairs, because that's really how things are broken down. He brought out all the county Democratic chairs, got their endorsements, wrapped up the primary with little fanfare, and boom, became governor. Now he's basically wiping his behind with the Constitution, and doing the driver's licenses thing, along with tons of other very harmful legislation. He wasn't able to get pot passed. Of course he wouldn't, because guess what? He's not from here, so thusly he didn't have the necessary weight, and so he got a lot of pushback on some of the things that he's been doing. But then again, he's also been bringing in a lot of people that aren't from New Jersey to come and do things when it comes to the Democratic Party here in the state that's questionable at best. So when it comes to how these people get elected, basically carpetbaggery. And and it's so weird having all these people who have no experience with the law on either side, right? Because I respect that game. I respect the rules that are put in place. But these people, the rules that they've been implementing is slowly chipping away and eroding the cohesion of the nation, particularly when you got a bunch of elected suits talking about bringing in the National Guard on the law enforcement of these areas. Have you lost your damn mind?
Law enforcement. I walk around without a uniform. People don't see my badge. People don't see my gun. And I can tell you, people are angry. And I am frightened. To the point that I am looking at moving my wife and child, my child to be March, my wife and child out of the state if these bills pass. The reason is because my fellow law enforcement officers, I've heard on more than one occasion, tell me that they would not enforce these bills regardless of whether they believe in them ideologically, because they believe that there are so many people angry in gun shops, gun shows, at bars. We have heard it now. People talking about tar and feathering politicians in a less than joking manner. People talking about fighting with violence over their concern with Senate Bill 16 and Senate Bill 64.
So you can imagine being in law enforcement and hearing citizens at different locations all over town talk about lynching and tar and feathering politicians for even suggesting bringing in the National Guard or taking their guns away. Why people are really on edge about this particular issue. Take, for instance, this conversation that took place between the Attorney General and Delegate Jay Jones from Norfolk, in which Jones writes, "The bills being passed by the General Assembly and signed into law by the governor are binding for our entire Commonwealth and its citizens. The legal precedents it would set by allowing communities to selectively ignore these laws at will is alarming and indicative of the same mindset that nearly 150 years ago led this country to dissolve into a civil war. And looking at the crowds in the streets that have been gathering in protest, you can start to see why people are getting concerned. They're showing up and protesting outside of courthouses, they're gathering at local municipalities, and they're letting their voice be heard. These aren't one or two gun nuts out in the hills in Alabama, hunting rabbits and skinning deer. These are average, ordinary people. Now, when you hear a story like this, the first thought that probably pops into your mind is it's a David and Goliath situation. The citizens are the little guys, and the government, backed by the National Guard, are just undefeatable. There's nothing that can be done. Well, the first thing you need to take into consideration is the sheriffs in Virginia outnumber the amount of deployable Army National Guard by almost 1,000. And those numbers are bolstered by sheriffs who are so committed to this that they're willing to deputize not hundreds, but thousands of people.
I do have a legal right to swear.
Did you or did you not see Tombstone?
Deputies, and that's been the same for hundreds of years here in the Commonwealth for any sheriff.
And others might say that might be okay for a handful of people, but if you deputize hundreds or thousands, that sounds like a militia in the making.
Hopefully the measures that they're hoping to approve won't actually pass and won't be necessary. But if they do enact those laws that they're proposing, restricting everything from the so-called assault weapons to high-capacity magazines and other things, let alone the red flag laws, my stance will be to, if need be, if it's passed, swear in hundreds or even thousands of citizens as auxiliary deputies. We have thousands of concealed carry permit holders in the county currently.
Two other
Culpeper County, huh? I don't know. I mean, Jersey kind of sucks right now. But I think we've gone on like long enough when it comes to just really understanding the weight of what's taking place when it comes to this situation with the 2A. And also to wrap it all the way back around to the beginning of this video with what Michelle Obama said. Deal is that they're clinging to their guns because their guns are a big part of their freedom. That it's a constitutional it's a constitutional right. It really is. I'm not one to sit here and talk about, oh my goodness, well, healthcare is a human right and all these other things. I really believe in the rights that are on paper, particularly for American citizens. And the left, the Democrats, the blue side, has been really overreaching with the authoritarianism and the fascistic energy that's been coming from that side. So, guys, with that being said, I think we're going to bring this one to an end. All the internet stuff. If you liked it, toss it a like, dislike, go ahead and do that too. Nobody's scared of you. Sub if you enjoy my fantastic voice. You want to give videos like this every single day. Share because sharing is caring. And YouTube and Bitchute and like aren't the biggest fans of your boy over here. Bang the bell for notifications. And speak. Let me know. What do you think in the comments? Because, I'm never going to... until the world completely collapses in on itself, I'm not going to react as if it's going to stop. Like we're not going to have the normal day-to-day until there's no longer a normal day-to-day. But do you think that, America's on the brink of a civil war? Please, that's what I have a comment section for. I really enjoy the conversations I've been having down there. So by all means, let me know what you guys think in the comments. And until the next one.